It's another late night. I'm down to 3 fingers of cheap bourbon, my last lucky, and a gnawing feeling in my gut that I'll never get to the bottom of this case. It all happened last week. One day last week, in fact. July 23rd, 1937. Why Bronson Barnard invited me in the maiden voyage of his new flying boat was a mystery to me. But then, to a detective, mysteries are common. That is, unknowns are common. Sometimes I know who's guilty. Sometimes I don't. But even when I do, I still have to find out how they did it, when, and why. The first 3 things you learn in detective school: means, opportunity, and motive. That's how it was with this one. I call it the case of the cautious Condor. I arrived at Pier 7 just outside Baltimore at 9:30 in the morning. Even before I passed through the gate, I could see the thing on the water at the Barnard Industries private dock. It was one of those big flying hotels the uptown crowd called China Clippers, equipped with staterooms, lounges, dining room, observation decks, the biggest planes ever built. And this one was even bigger, more sleek, more modern, more powerful, more extravagant, just like its designer and builder, Bronson Barnard. I knew Bronson in 1917. The Great War, we called it then. We enlisted in the Lafayette Escadrille, flew battered Nieuports over France, blasting German Fokkers out of the sky and saluting them as they went down. I was pretty good at it. Bronson wasn't quite as good, but like everything he does, he was flamboyant. Except that day a German ace got him in his gun sights. The Kraut swooped out of the sun, unloading a belt from his wing gun. Bronson tried desperately to get out of range, but the Hun stuck to his tail like gum on a new shoe. I could see my pal was finished if I didn't do something. I yelled, "Keep away from him, Bronson! I'll take care of it!" I did a triple roll around the German's triplane and came up under him, spitting lead from my forward machine gun. The bewildered crowd must have heard his tail ripped with bullets because he let go of Bronson and did a right wing over to get out of my sights. But I figured he'd do that. And I finished an Immelman before he got level. I unloaded another volley into his right side, and it was all over. The Fokker went down, splintering into kindling on some French farmyard. Bronson had seen it all and threw me a thankful salute. But he never mentioned the incident again. I supposed it festered in him, but I don't know. After the war, our lives drifted apart. He apparently kept track of me through my days as a New York cop, with the feds chasing Capone, right up to now. Even though my career was currently a string of divorce stakeouts and runaway husbands. But I never heard from Bronson until the invitation arrived for the maiden flight of his Condor. He must have known that I, like the other guests I found on board, couldn't resist a decadently luxurious free trip to Europe on the most advanced piece of aeronautical hardware yet devised. Besides, I hadn't been to Lisbon lately. After the 11 other guests were seated in the comfortable reclining seats in the main lounge, the Condor began its takeoff. The 6 twin cyclone radial engines roared to life, kicking up a vortex of sea spray as the huge bird moved away from the mooring. It lumbered across the bay, trailing a broad wake. Then the pitch of the engines rose, and the Condor leaped ahead, gaining momentum. Straining to lift its broad keel out of the water, the flying boat finally rose gracefully into the evening sky above Chesapeake Bay. And as the steward passed the finest champagne around to all the passengers, our host, Bronson Barnard, welcomed us all aboard.
Thank you all. This magnificent aircraft, which I call the Condor, will be cruising at 190 miles an hour. We will make the flight across the Atlantic in less than 24 hours. The steward is passing out a list of the passengers, just so we'll all know each other. Yes, some of you know each other, and others know of each other. In fact, all of you are connected, shall we say involved with each other?
But Bronson, why?
That, my old acquaintance, is my secret. But I promise you this, by the time we reach Lisbon, you and I will know everything. So, until we reach Portugal, salute. My greatest achievement, Peters. The forerunner of an entire fleet of Condors, which will span the globe in hours. It took considerable genius, led by my own, to master the intricacies of such a craft.
Engineering, finance, politics. It seems you dominate whatever enterprise you put your mind to.
Oh, yes, Miss Simmons. All fields of human endeavor fascinate me. I master them all.
Including underworld corruption and international espionage, or so I hear.
It is due only to the fact that you saved my life on more than one occasion during the war that I allow such comments, Peters.
You used to call me Ned when we were chasing Krauts in France.
Once. Yes, once. But while your life since has been one of struggle, fleeting success, and ultimate banality, I have accomplished one miraculous feat after another, culminating in this magnificent aircraft.
Bronson, what is it?
Steward! Yes, sir. Oh, what's happened?
Mr. Barnard is ill. Help me get him to his stateroom.
What is it, a heart attack?
I don't know. I'll tend to him. You tell the pilot to turn around and get this flying hotel back to Baltimore double quick.
Yes, sir.
Bronson, can you hear me?
Ned, help me.
Yes, Bronson. We're heading back to Baltimore.
No, too soon.
What do you mean?
Ned, I need the 24 hours to solve a murder.
A murder? Isn't that a little more in my line than yours?
I wanted to prove I was as good as you. Had to make up for being saved in France.
Bronson, you've brooded about that since then?
Listen, someone on board is a murderer. They killed a customs agent named Gerald Weltner.
Weltner, I think I read about that in the papers.
A star witness in a congressional investigation into corruption in the U.S. Customs Department. Weltner was going to expose foreign agents and Americans who were bribing customs officials.
But how does that...
June 22nd, about 9:30 p.m., Weltner was found sprawled across the ottoman in his townhouse. $10,000 in crisp new bills were on the floor. He was poisoned.
But what's that got to do with the Condor?
A challenge. A 24-hour trip to find the murderers and get the proof.
But why me? I had nothing to do with Weltner's death.
Just to show you I could do it. But now, I need you.
How?
Get the evidence. Expose the killer before the plane touches down.
But we're headed back to Baltimore. We'll be there in 30 minutes at the most.
Then hurry. Now that they all know that I'm onto them, you can never get them together again. Play them against each other. You'll get the truth.
But how did you find out all this?
Weltner was my son.
But I thought you never married.
Illegitimate. The product of a brief fling I had with a chorus girl. I watched over him. Got him the position at the Customs Department. Before he died, he managed to phone me.
What did he say?
He rattled off a list of names. But he was out of his head from the poison. Talked as if all of them killed him. The police had no lead, so I arranged this fight to catch the killer.
Bronson, this is crazy.
No, listen. There's a reporter on board, Vera Simmons. She can help you. She's been following the congressional hearings, and there's my notebook.
Notebook?
My detective's notebook. In my nightstand. It has all the information on all of them. may help.
But who do you suspect, Bronson?
Get the evidence, Ned.
Bronson! Bronson! Who is it? Who is the murderer? Is he dead?
No, he's still breathing, but he's no good for the rest of the flight.
What do we do, sir?
You tell the captain to get this bucket back to Baltimore as fast as he can. As for me, I've got 30 minutes to find a murderer. I hate to admit it, but I need your help on this case. I couldn't be everywhere on that short trip, so I must have missed some clues. Use the screen pointer to select a room for me to go to, and we'll see what happens there. If you want to search a room, select the magnifying glass. To accuse one of the suspects, select the handcuffs. Remember, you'll need means, motive, and opportunity to get a confession. But you never know what a nervous suspect will reveal if you lean on him a little. To see how much time you have left before the plane lands, select the watch. Select any of the suspect's pictures, and I'll show you Barnard's notebook. The notebook contains background, means, motives, and opportunity. Select any of these, and I'll tell you what we know so far. I usually wait until after my suspects stop speaking to make my accusations or check the notebook. You never know what information you might miss if you interrupt them. Good luck, pal. This is a cagey bunch. So don't give up until you catch the rat that killed Gerald Weltner. I realized I had less than 28 minutes to solve the mystery. Okonjo Kudasai is a world-renowned dealer in Oriental art and relics of ancient civilizations. He's deceptive in his appearance, reserved Japanese demeanor, but well-educated in the West, with a taste in clothing that runs to Savile Row. His familiarity with a wide range of subjects and cultures can be disarming to those who don't know him well, but he's actually a pretty fun guy with a good sense of humor. Vera Simmons is a reporter for the Washington Tribune, and a good one, too. She's on this flight because she was following the story on the congressional investigation of corruption within the Customs Department. When Weltner was murdered before he could be subpoenaed to testify, she started digging and knows a lot about everybody on board the Condor. Hernando Cabron is a real-life Casanova on 3 continents, darkly handsome with a talent for the tango. His romantic conquests are usually fleeting, and he always leaves them broken-hearted, disappearing for months at a time before reappearing to pursue yet another unsuspecting ingenue. He lives life in the fast track, but has no known background to support his high-profile image as a romantic idol. Prince Mohammed Aziz Farouk is the Crown Prince of Egypt. Although since his cousin, King Farouk, is only 17 years old, there's not much chance he'll ever shine his pants on the royal throne. He's in America to attend Georgetown University, but he's more devoted to the less demanding studies offered in the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore nightclubs. He's currently the escort of WANDA SHEPARD, and a rather jealous one at that. He has somewhat of a temper and is given to invoking Islamic curses at the drop of a fez. WANDA SHEPARD is a movie actress. Talented? No, but a figure that would stop a clock. With some success in B pictures, she has a public following of sorts and aspires to be a Hollywood starlet. She's really quite likable, but behind her apparent bubble-headed personality, there is a willingness to do whatever's necessary to achieve the public acclaim she craves. Jagdish Mehta is a graduate student at Georgetown University. He's a simple sort of man. Most would think him an unlikely suspect for murder. But he is passionate about achieving the independence of India from the British. and will pursue any opportunity to gain influential support for his cause. Madam Marushka Petrovka is an enigma, a sultry woman of mystery, yet passionate about world politics, especially when it relates to Russia and the Bolshevik Revolution. World-traveled, she seems to be a woman of independent means, outspoken, with a talent for intimidating the arrogant and self-important who cross her path. Hermann Schnorrer is one of those Aryan authoritarians who seem to have a permanent sneer on his face. He also owns one of the largest munitions plants in Germany, and makes no bones about his backing of Der Fuhrer and the Nazi Party. Hyacinthia Dunn is a Southern belle who happens to own a large and prosperous tobacco plantation. She seems to have forgotten the Civil War even occurred, preferring to live in an antebellum fantasy where the landed gentry are the only people of consequence. Her naivete about the world is sometimes comical, but she simply bats her eyes and flutters about from one faux pas to another. Francois Leclerc is a wealthy French wine baron, having acquired some of the finest Bordeaux vineyards in all of France. He's a boastful, arrogant member of the French aristocracy, preferring the company of those of equal standing, with an outspoken disdain for those he considers beneath him. In short, a typical Frenchman. Lady Waddington is the wife of Sir Reginald Waddington, a member of the British House of Lords. A worldly socialite, she's a member of that exclusive circle of blue-noses who scoff at world events and amuse themselves by flattering each other at lavish parties, getting mention in the society pages, and measuring their stature by their ranking in the social register. In other words, a real bore. The galley was small, but had everything to cater to the worldly taste of a guy like Barnard. I also noticed several storage cabinets and closets that seemed to have everything necessary for the smooth operation of a class act like the Condor. For the benefit of prying eyes, I pretended to be looking for a snack as I prowled around for clues in the galley. I was lucky this time. I got the last ham and cheese sandwich. Miss Simmons, Barnard said you could be trusted. I need some information about the Weltner murder. What did the...
Who do you think I am, the local librarian? Dig up your own story, Peters. I'm working.
Well, pardon me for breathing, sister. Look, I think we're both on the same side. You want to print the truth about Weltner, and I want to nail the murderer. If we can help each other, why not?
Oh, sort of you show me yours and I'll show you mine, huh, Peters?
Look, I just need some basic information. In return, I've got some juicy stuff that you can't get anywhere else. Something that'll have your readers jumping out of their skins about. So what do you say? I'll even go first.
Okay, shoot. But this better be good.
You tell me. You ready for this? Weltner was Barnard's illegitimate son. He never said anything about it, but the old man always looked out for the kid while he was growing up. Barnard pulled some strings and got Weltner the job in the customs department. Weltner was mixed up in this bribery business, and he was killed for his trouble. Barnard set up this whole excursion because he thinks the killer is on board. Now, because of his condition, he asked me to do what I could before the plane lands. And there you are.
You expect me to buy that? I mean, do I have sucker written on my face or what?
Suit yourself. But you know as well as I do, a bright reporter could corroborate that story. And you gotta admit, it's just a little too wild for me to make up.
You have a point there, Peters. Okay, what do you need to know?
Just how was the body found? And I mean the details the police have.
The police got an anonymous call about 9:30 p.m. A man telling them a murder was in progress. When they arrived, Weltner was already a cold fish, sprawled over an ottoman with $10,000 in new bills at his feet. I mean, they still had the bank wrappers on them. Federal Trust Bank of Durham, North Carolina. A glass of sherry was on the mantel. The residue in the bottom tested positive for mercuric chloride, enough to kill 3 men. There had been some sort of scuffle. A desk lamp was smashed and the papers from the desk were scattered on the floor. The telephone was off the hook and the receiver was near the body. The coroner said death occurred at about 9:45, but the poison could have been given up to 6 hours earlier. So anybody who was there from 3:45 on is a suspect. No witnesses have come forward, and that's about where the case stands. Any help?
I'll let you know. Keep that story I told you under your hat till after we land, okay?
Yeah. But if you crack this case, I get an exclusive on the story, okay?
You got it, doll. I found myself in the aft observation deck, which had been designed like a garden room with live plants and a potted palm. I could hear tropical birds, but as I looked around, I couldn't find the source. No doubt one of Barnard's gadgets again. Realizing I was not alone, I confined my search of the aft observation deck to a quick once-over that produced nothing of interest. Lady Waddington, I'd have thought you'd be with the rest of the guests. There's quite a party going on in the forward lounge.
Mr. Peters, I am most disturbed about the circumstances of this voyage. Now, I was under the impression that this was an exclusive occasion. Well, imagine my surprise when I saw the guest list. Why, there are hardly any people of social standing aboard. I mean, really? A motion picture actress? And that nasty little Hindu man. He has been harassing me for weeks. And now to find him invited on what should be the social event of the season. I can understand. Weren't you and Mr. Bernard previously acquainted?
Yeah, we flew together during the war, but we haven't been that close. I'm a private detective, so we run in slightly different circles.
Oh, my, how interesting. Are you along for business or pleasure?
A little of both, Lady Waddington. A little of both. A fellow was murdered down in Arlington a few weeks ago, and I'm just tying up a few loose ends. It seems a number of the guests aboard today were acquainted with the deceased, Mr. Gerald Weltner. Ever heard the name?
No, I don't believe I have. But then sordid things like murder never happened in polite society. However, that vulgar Russian woman seems capable of almost anything, if you ask me.
Now, the forward lounge looks like the place to be. A bar, tended by a big Belgian named Henri. A 4-piece combo that could really blow a tune. Room to dance. And enough tables and chairs to throw a real party. I tried to be as inconspicuous as possible as I looked for evidence in the forward lounge. The only thing I turned up was a packet of Sen-Sen on top of the piano.
Senor Cabron, I think they are playing your song.
Shall we?
Con gusto, Marushka. You read my mind, my lady. Shall we go? Eh? People are watching us.
My stars! I declare that wango or tango or whatever you call it is the most disgusting exhibition of loose morals I have ever witnessed. And believe me, I am no prude. I swear.
That broad is a real pip. Who died and made her god, anyway?
Oh, never mind her, Nettie. Hernando can really cut a rug, don't you think?
Yeah, he's a regular Arthur Murray. What's his story, anyway?
I don't know, really. It's kind of strange. I know he hangs out at the Club Marti. And when he does the tango, everybody is really impressed. But I was talking to that Vera girl, and she said he was really some kind of mining engineer from Spain. Copper, I think. Just think, all those pennies from a guy with that cute little mustache. Anyway, she said he was here on some kind of mining business. I didn't know there was a copper mine in Baltimore.
Wanda, you're a gem. So the Casanova's really a mining engineer. What the heck does that have to do with Weltner? The forward observation deck was a large cabin with high-backed recliners facing windows that gave a great view out the front of the plane. I nonchalantly checked around the forward observation deck, but was unable to discover anything without arousing the other guests' suspicions.
Ah, Senorita Dunn, won't you join us? We were just enjoying the view.
Why, thank you. Isn't it romantic? Flying off into the sunset on a simply gorgeous airplane like this? But I expect to look around and see Charles Boyer at any moment.
Enjoy it while you can, Miss Dunn. We should be landing back in Baltimore soon.
Oh, fiddlesticks. Why can't we just go on to Lisbon anyway? The steward says Mr. Barnard was feeling much better. And I've heard Portugal is simply heavenly this time of year. Isn't that so, Mr. Cabron?
Oh, si, senorita. Portugal is a balmy land, indeed. However, I am sure your American South is muy bonita, no?
Oh, I suppose, but, well, I was so looking forward to being somewhere besides Durham during the tobacco harvest. Between the dust and the humidity, well, North Carolina in the summer is only fit for the health and the livestock. Perfectly devilish on a delicate nature such as my own. Charles, he's my baby brother, you know. Charles said, now you go off and enjoy Europe, and I'll see to the plantation. But now, that's all ruined. Stewart, is Mr. Barnard feeling any better?
Oh, boy. This gal has seen too many D.W. Griffith movies. I thought this kind of flower of the South had wilted long ago. I kept trying to imagine what a Dixie Belle from Durham, North Carolina had to do with Weltner's death. Wait a minute. Simmons said the $10,000 found near the body were still in wrappers from a bank in Durham, North Carolina. It's a safe bet Dunn was bribing Weltner, and probably the very day of the murder. It was a safe bet the 10 grand with the Durham bank wrappers found at the scene of the crime came from Dunn. She was buying off Weltner for some reason. Panicked when it looked like she might be exposed in the congressional hearings. And in the good old Southern tradition, she helped him drink himself to death. The 10 grand found at Weltner's feet had probably been delivered shortly before he cashed in his chips. The Durham bank wrappers made it a cinch that it was Dunn who delivered them. Well, maybe not a cinch, but enough to bluff her into admitting something. Miss Dunn, it was you who killed Gerald Weltner. You can't hide behind that innocent Southern Belle facade any longer. I've got the goods on you, and now you'll pay for your crime.
Whatever are you talking about, Mr. Peters? I have never even spoken to the man.
Oh, no? Then how do you explain $10,000 in new bills from the Federal Trust Bank of Durham, North Carolina, found near the body? Listen, doll, when you're bribing somebody, you really ought to be more discreet.
Now, you stop this nonsense. You are embarrassing me. I must talk to you. Alone. Mr. Peters, oh, you've just got to understand. That's not the way it was, not at all. Please, please believe me, I didn't kill him. He was alive when I left.
Tell it to the judge, sweetheart. You'll have plenty of time.
No. I didn't do it. I admit I was bribing Mr. Weltner to keep those damnable cheap foreign cigarettes off the market. It was my brother's idea, really. But murder? Never. It must have been one of the others.
Others? What others?
Well, it was a regular parade all afternoon. I mean, I wasn't the only one there, you know. I actually went there at about 3:30 in the afternoon. I parked the car down the street a bit. I was a little nervous. Well, I'd never been involved in anything like that before. So, of course, I didn't want anybody to see me. Well, sir, just as I was about to get out of my car, a taxi drove up. And do you know who got out? That Japanese man, Mr. Kudasai. He was inside for about 15 minutes. Plenty of time to poison somebody, if you ask me. Then, after he left, that English snob, Lady Waddington, drove up and went in. And then that shifty little man from India, what was his name? Mr. Maida. He comes sneaking across the lawn and knocks on the door and goes in. I thought I was going to be there all day, I swear. Anyway, there must have been some kind of a fight, because the next thing I know, Mr. Weltner is throwing Mr. Maida out, and I mean head over tea kettle. Anyway, Lady Waddington left soon after that, so I went up to the door and I rang. Mr. Weltner let me in, and, oh, believe me, he was alive and well, I assure you. He seemed very pleased with himself, leaning against the mantel, sipping his sherry. He gave me a cold chill just to be in the same room with him. I gave him the money and left as soon as I could. About 6:30, as I recall. Please believe me, I didn't kill him.
Okay, I believe you already. Just shut up. So, Kudasai, Waddington, and Maida all saw Weltner before he died. I realized I had less than 19 minutes to solve the mystery. In the dining salon, my eye was instantly drawn to a backlit Tiffany stained glass rendering of the Barnard Industries logo. A defiant winged victory bursting out of a storm cloud, clutching a lightning bolt in one hand and a great hammer in the other. No one seemed to notice as I discreetly searched the dining salon for evidence, nor did anyone notice my frustration when I found nothing incriminating.
Mademoiselle Simmons, you are a journalist, no? What of the civil war in Spain? Will the loyalists prevail?
If Russia backs the loyalists, the fascists will have a more difficult time. But the prospects for survival of the Republic are in doubt.
Ah, Leclerc, you pig! There is no doubt about it. General Franco will plow through the pitiful loyalist dogs like an ox through new oats.
Perhaps not, Madame Petrovka. Your own countrymen will soon send the guns and money that will save the Republic.
Bolshevik swine. They are raping Mother Russia and will soon be driven out. Mr. Leclerc, there are forces moving in the world that will wipe away the Bolsheviks and replace their anarchy with a new order. So you see, the trifles they can offer the Spanish loyalists cannot turn back the fascist tide. Why, even as we speak, a great hero of the fascist cause, known only as the Mongoose, is smuggling arms from America to General Franco. Ha! Even America unwittingly assists the fascists. The Republic is dead when the American arms arrive.
Madam PETROVKA, you are mad. Mongoose indeed. Franco will wither on his fascist van like a raisin. Mark my words.
The aft lounge was a comfortable cabin, complete with a well-stocked bar, red leather chairs, and a poker table covered with green felt. I noticed the latest electric gramophone in the corner. Barnard always had to have the latest inventions. I cased the aft lounge as best I could without drawing the attention of anyone, but I found nothing of it.
Peter-san, do you mind if I put some music on the Victrola? Bernard-san has a remarkable collection of phonograph records.
Go right ahead. And I might as well tell you, I'm not much for the long hair stuff.
I think you will agree that Laura is one of the 20th century's most talented composers.
I gotta say, Kudasai, you have pretty good taste in tunes. What gives?
It is simple, Peter-san. I am fortunate that my business allows me to sample the many cultures of the world and enjoy the best of each.
Just what line are you in, Kudasai? It obviously agrees with you.
I am a dealer in antiquities, art, jewelry, relics of past civilizations. I am also retained by museums around the world to authenticate their collections and ensure that new acquisitions are what they purport to be.
Sounds like a tough proposition. I've heard some art forgeries are nearly perfect.
I must admit, all my skill is not intuitive, Peter-san. Science has evolved to the point that chemical indicators, primarily mercury chloride, can detect modern materials used in forgeries.
Huh. What will the boys in the lab think of next? Is this stuff new or something?
Oh, no. To the contrary, mercuric chloride is a most common compound used in many industrial and commercial processes. Did you know it is also used to separate copper from its impure ore?
Well, well. Kudasai has mercuric chloride to spare. Enough to slip into a glass of sherry. Still, if it's as common as he says, somebody else could get it too. Copper mining. Wait a minute. Copper mine plus cabron equals mercuric chloride. This is almost too simple. So cabron could easily get mercuric chloride to poison Weltner.
Fräulein Petrovka, I must compliment your mastery of the tango you demonstrated with Herr Cabron. I had no idea you were such an accomplished dancer.
Thank you, Mr. Schnorrer. But you see, tango is old Russian folk dance I learned as child.
If I may be so bold, Madame Petrovka, a woman of your dignity should not be seen associating with a person of ill repute, such as Hernando Cabron.
Prince Farouk, I am flattered by your concern, but what reason do you have for such a low opinion of Mr. Cabron? Surely a man born of royalty does not envy hot blood of mere tango dancer.
I have seen the shameful regard he has for a woman's honor. Why, for weeks now he has been wooing Lady Waddington in public at the Club Marti, preying on a matron's insecurities with empty flattery and sly propositions. You could see it in her eyes. He had a Svengali-like influence over her. This evening, however, he will hardly speak to her. Now that he has used her for his own wicked ends, I say he is nothing but a common gigolo.
Prince Farouk, to translate old Russian proverb, methinks thou doth protest too much. Where is Miss Shepherd now, anyway? Never mind. I like man with such spirit. Perhaps you would like to escort me to observation deck for the landing dock?
So the British Blue Nose had a torch for the tango dancer. I can't blame the poor broad, really. To an over-the-hill society dame, even a schmuck like Cabron must look pretty romantic, next to a stuffed shirt like Sir Reginald. Lady Waddington had the hots for Cabron. Cabron worked in the copper mining industry. Mercuric chloride is used to process copper ore. That's the ticket. She could have gotten the mercuric chloride from him. And all she needs is a chance to slip it in Weltner's sherry, and the deed is done.
Monsieur Peters, a moment of your time, s'il vous plaît.
What's up, Leclerc?
It is about this Simmons woman. She seems to be asking an awful lot of questions about that Weltner man who died a few weeks ago. She is making a lot of people uncomfortable with all her morbid talk about where an admittedly horrible death, but just the same. What is she up to?
Well, Vera Simmons is a reporter. Coincidentally, it seems that a few of the guests on board were, shall we say, acquainted with the deceased. She's just angling for a story. You don't have anything to hide, do you, Leclerc?
Oh, don't be absurd. I just don't think she should act like everybody is a suspect.
Well, I think what happened was sad. I think Jerry Weltner was my biggest fan, even though sometimes, well, most of the time he was a pest. I mean, he was always showing up at the wrong time, saying the oddest things. Well, when one time he said, as soon as the mongoose pays his dues, you and I'll run away to the Greek Isles. Have you ever been to the Greek Isles, Ned?
The mongoose. Did he say who the mongoose was?
No, not really. I figured they must be some kind of lodge brothers or something.
It suddenly occurred to me that this mongoose fellow Petrovka and Wanda were talking about must have been bribing Weltner to expedite the smuggling of arms to Franco. The mongoose was the key to this mess. I had to find out who he was.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We will be making our descent to Baltimore Harbor shortly, so all guests should be seated on either of the observation decks. Please fasten your seatbelts as it may be a bumpy landing. Thank you.
Prince Farouk, I know you travel in exclusive circles and have made the acquaintance of many influential people. I beg of you to help me convince those of consequence to press the British government to grant sovereignty to the people of India. Until Parliament can see the legitimacy of our claim, I am afraid bloodshed will overcome diplomacy, and many will die. Can you help us?
I sympathize with your cause, Mr. Mehta. The British were unwelcome guests in Egypt as well, until recently. Unfortunately, since my cousin the king is but 17 years old, it is unlikely that I will ever have influence over affairs of state. However, Lady Waddington, the wife of a member of Parliament, Sir Reginald Waddington, would be a most useful ally. If you could gain her ear, you gain the ear of her husband.
Alas, I have tried to persuade Lady Waddington of the justness of our cause since she arrived in America, but she won't listen. I have been following her, waiting for an opportunity to sway her opinion, but for weeks now she has constantly been with that Spaniard, Mr. Cabron. Why, several weeks ago, I had followed them to an inn near Arlington, the Hotel Mantequilla. I believe Mr. Cabron lives there. I remembered it most vividly as they stood outside, a garish neon sign flashing in their faces. She said, "You may be the mongoose to the others, but to me you are Valentino. That Cabron fellow has an evil eye, and I am afraid to approach her when she is with him."
Most regrettable circumstances, I agree, Mr. Mehta. I will consider what you have told me. If there is a way I can help, I will let you know.
Oh, thank you, Sahib. 1,000 thanks.
So Cabron is the mysterious mongoose. According to Wanda, he was making some kind of payoff to Weltner. If Cabron is the mongoose, then Weltner's testimony would expose the smuggling of arms to the fascists, and the supply lines would be cut off. Like any good revolutionary, Cabron would find a way to prevent that from happening. Eliminate Weltner. Since Waddington was an emotional slave to Cabron, she would probably do anything he asked, even murder if he threatened to abandon her. So the heroic mongoose turns out to be a snake who needs a love-starved dame to do his dirty work.
Cabron, you wild stallion. If it wasn't for this seat belt, I would leap into your arms.
Oh, Marushka, my volcano of passion. What is your pleasure tonight? Dancing until dawn, or a mad drive to Atlantic City in the Bugatti, eh?
They are quite a pair, aren't they, Peterson? I shall have to invite them to my next art exhibition. They certainly have a way of livening up a party.
I think they do it more to show off than for anything else, Kudasai.
Perhaps. Like the peacock who craves attention. But I sense they are much deeper than that. Those that are the most conspicuous often have the most to hide.
That's very profound, Kudasai. Any particular observations you'd like to share?
Observations? Oh, not really. It's just an old proverb that make me seem inscrutable.
Cabron worked as an engineer in a Spanish copper mine where mercuric chloride was used to process the ore. He could have planned the murder in advance and brought the poison with him when he came to the States. According to Jagdish Mehta, Cabron is the infamous mongoose, a gun runner for Franco's forces in the Spanish Civil War. Wanda's story seemed to indicate he'd been bribing Weltner to allow guns to be shipped to Spain. And when the congressional hearings threatened to expose the scheme, he would naturally want to protect himself by eliminating Cabron probably threatened to abandon Lady Waddington if she didn't slip the mercuric chloride in Weltner's drink. The poor broad was so infatuated with a tango king, she'd do anything. It's all over, Cabron. You killed Gerald Weltner, and I'm going to see that you fry for it.
You are loco, Peters. I was with Madame Petrovka the evening that he was killed. Just how did I commit this crime?
It was you who actually poisoned the poor sap, wasn't it, Lady Waddington?
No! I didn't know it would kill him. Hernando, you said it was just a drug that would give him amnesia. You said it wouldn't kill him.
Shut up, vieja. He knows nothing. Senor Peters, you will regret this. You are just guessing. Why would I want to kill Weltner? Why, I didn't even know him.
Perhaps the mongoose did, Cabron. The mongoose was bribing Weltner to smuggle arms to the fascists in Spain. When it looked like that supply line would be exposed, the mongoose had Weltner eliminated. The mongoose. Or should I say Hernando Cabron. You, Cabron. With the help of the mercuric chloride you use regularly in Spanish copper mines. And by intimidating a pitiful, misguided woman, you arranged the poisoning of Gerald Weltner.
Yes, I am the mongoose. And I forced Senora Waddington to kill Weltner, but my cause is just. Viva Franco! Viva Fascismo!
Cabron was subdued by the crew and held for the authorities in Baltimore. Lady Waddington was in a daze and wasn't a problem. The poor gal would probably have to do some time, but I hope the judge reserved his toughest sentence for that snake Cabron. By the way, Bronson Barnard survived his brush with death, and, if I do say so myself, was a better man for it. That wrapped up the case of the cautious Condor. And I did get one thing out of that whole adventure. Wanda's phone number. And in a way, that made it worthwhile.
Do you mind if I join you, Lady Waddington?
It is a free country, or so I am told.
Miss Simmons, I think you have done quite enough to annoy the guests. Why don't you sit with Monsieur Peters, huh?
Of course. We couldn't have Lady Waddington mixing with the hoi polloi, now could we, Leclerc? I mean, what would people think if she was seen associating with us common folk?
I have just had about enough of your innuendos, you Fourth Estate trollop. Now, if you have something to say, then out with it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what's on your mind, Vera. Spill it, or leave the lady alone.
Oh, can it, Peters? If you were doing your job instead of sitting on your hands, Byron might have some good news to wake up to.
Since Lady Waddington was infatuated with Cabron, he could have procured the mercuric chloride for her from his copper mining background. The schmuck probably didn't even ask what she wanted it for, so long as he got what he wanted. Cabron, the heroic mongoose, probably threatened to abandon the old broad if she didn't poison Weltner. Cabron was using Waddington to eliminate the threat to his arms pipeline to the fascists. Considering her infatuation with his tango mystique, she'd probably do anything for him. Hyacinthia Dunn saw Waddington enter Weltner's townhouse the afternoon of the murder, and she had plenty of time to slip him the old Mickey. Okay, Lady Waddington, you killed Gerald Weltner, and now you're taking the fall. You were in love with Cabron. He gave you the mercuric chloride to put in Weltner's drink, and when he threatened to abandon you if you didn't do as he said, you agreed. Miss Dunn saw you enter Weltner's townhouse the evening of June 22nd. That's when you put the poison in Weltner's sherry. You killed Weltner, and now you're going over for it.
No, I didn't know it would kill him. Fernando, you said it was just a drug that would give him amnesia. You said it wouldn't kill him.
Shut up, vieja. He knows nothing. Senor Peters, you will regret this. You are just guessing. Why would I want to kill Weltner? Why, I don't even know him.
Perhaps the mongoose did, Cabron. The mongoose was bribing Weltner to smuggle arms to the fascists in Spain. When it looked like that supply line would be exposed, the mongoose had Weltner eliminated. The mongoose, or should I say Hernando Cabron. You, Cabron, with the mercuric chloride you obtained as an engineer in a Spanish copper mine. And by intimidating a pitiful, misguided woman, you arranged the poisoning of Gerald Weltner.
Ah, yes. Yes, I am the mongoose, and I forced Senor Waddington to kill Weltner. But my cause is just Viva Franco! Viva Fascismo!
The odd jumble of conversations I had heard kept running around my brain like rats in a maze, until the unmistakable change in the sound of the engines told me the Condor was landing. The sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach was not from the rapid descent, but from the knowledge that I had failed Barnard, and his son's killer would walk off the plane. The great bird skimmed the surface of the harbor, then settled into the blue water. As it taxied to the Barnard Industries dock, the faces of my suspects flashed in my consciousness, and each had that same smug look, like a gambler who'd just drawn an inside straight. I walked to the gangway and watched as the others left the plane.
Well, Ned, I guess this is goodbye. Don't let it bother you too much. Life is too short. Do svidania, darling.
Lady Waddington, may I have the privilege of escorting you to your hotel? I know what an ordeal this has been. No thanks to Monsieur Peters.
Oh, thank you, Francois. I want to forget this whole incident. Oh, I certainly hope this doesn't get into the society papers.
Oh my, this has been exciting, hasn't it, Mr. Peters? Although I must admit, I feel much better now that we are back on solid ground. Goodbye, my friend.
I think if this was the end of a movie, your line would be, "Here's looking at you, kid. But you look like you've got a mouthful of mothballs. Why don't you stick with something you're good at, skip it."
I knew she was right, of course. But that didn't stop me from thinking about the strange collection of people that swirled around the murder of Gerald Weltner. And that's just where the case of the cautious Condor stands today. No answers. It's a lot of questions I should have been able to answer. Questions I'll no doubt ponder again.